You know that sentence we all say way too often? I'll do it. We say it casually, confidently, like it's a promise. But let's be honest, most people don't do anything after saying it. We live in a world full of ambitious minds and lazy bodies, people dreaming of big futures while refusing to take the smallest step today. This video is your mirror, and if you see yourself in it, good, because recognizing the truth is the first step to changing it. Number one, the illusion of ambition. People love calling themselves ambitious because it's one of the easiest identities to adopt without actually earning it. Ambition sounds powerful. It sounds respectable. It makes you feel like you're on the verge of something great, even when you haven't taken a single step toward anything. There's a strange comfort in saying, I want to do big things, because just speaking it out loud gives the brain a small hit of validation, a tiny psychological reward that mimics real achievement. It tricks you into believing you're further along than you are. That illusion becomes addictive. You start talking about your plans more than working on them. You feel proud of your goals, but drained by the idea of actually pursuing them. And slowly, ambition becomes a fantasy you repeat to yourself so you don't have to confront the truth that nothing is changing. Most people don't realize that ambition is supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to disrupt your habits, challenge your current identity, force you to abandon the routines that keep you stagnant. But because the idea of ambition feels good, people cling to the image of themselves as future high achievers while continuing the behaviors of someone who is stuck exactly where they've always been. The illusion protects them. It shields them from the guilt of knowing they could be doing more but aren't. It gives them a socially acceptable story to hide behind. I'm ambitious, I'm planning things, I'm thinking big, even though nothing has actually moved forward. And the more they repeat this story, the more convincing it feels, not just to others, but to themselves. The illusion of ambition is so powerful because it replaces action with imagination. People fantasize about their future success in such vivid detail that it feels almost real. They imagine the praise, the lifestyle, the transformation. They imagine who they will become, instead of working on who they are. And the worst part is that this illusion becomes a cycle. The bigger the dream, the less effort they feel capable of putting in, because the gap between their current reality and imagined future becomes overwhelming. So they stay in the comfort of dreaming. They feed off the identity of someone destined for more, even though they never move. Ambition becomes a mask they wear, not a mission they pursue. Number two, the comfort addiction. Most people assume they're lazy, but laziness is rarely the real issue. The deeper truth is that they're addicted to comfort. Comfort becomes a psychological blanket, soft, predictable, familiar, and stepping away from it feels like stepping into danger, even when that danger is simply the effort required to improve their own life. This addiction grows quietly. It disguises itself as rest, as taking a break, as I'll do it later. But underneath those excuses is a dependency on ease, a craving for the path of least resistance. The human brain is wired to conserve energy, and comfort feeds that instinct like a drug. Every moment you choose comfort over effort, you reinforce the same neural pathways that keep you stuck. And eventually, comfort becomes more than a preference. It becomes an identity you cannot detach from. People don't notice how comfort takes control because it doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly, through small daily decisions that seem harmless, choosing the couch instead of the gym, choosing scrolling instead of studying, choosing distraction instead of discipline. One comfortable choice doesn't ruin your life, but 1,000 of them do. It's the kind of addiction that feels safe, even innocent, because it doesn't destroy you dramatically. It destroys you quietly. Comfort feeds procrastination, and procrastination feeds guilt, and guilt feeds self-doubt. Before long, you're living in a loop, craving change, avoiding effort, and comforting yourself with the same habits that keep you from moving forward. This cycle becomes so familiar that breaking it feels like tearing away a part of yourself. The addiction to comfort also shapes how people interpret discomfort. Most individuals believe discomfort is a sign they're doing something wrong, when in reality, it's a sign they're growing. But growth feels foreign when you've conditioned yourself to live inside a bubble of ease. Even small challenges, waking up early, learning a new skill, starting a routine, feel overwhelming because your mind has been trained to reject anything that threatens the stability of comfort. This addiction becomes so strong that people mislabel effort as suffering and sacrifice as pain, even when these are the very things that build a stronger, more capable version of themselves. Comfort tricks you into believing you're protecting yourself when really you're limiting yourself. Number three, the identity conflict. The most painful struggle people face isn't between ambition and laziness. It's between who they say they are and who they actually are. This conflict silently shapes their behavior, their confidence, and their ability to change. People love describing themselves as hardworking, disciplined, motivated, or destined for more. They create this ideal version of themselves in their minds, a version built from the traits they admire but haven't yet earned. But when their daily actions contradict this identity, when they avoid effort, break promises to themselves, or choose comfort over progress, the gap between their self-image and their reality widens. That gap becomes emotional pressure. It becomes internal conflict. And over time, it creates a deep sense of guilt that people try to ignore rather than address. They know they're capable of better, but their behavior never reflects that belief, and this mismatch slowly chips away at their self-respect. This identity conflict is powerful because the brain hates inconsistency. Humans crave psychological alignment. We want our actions to match the story we tell about ourselves. When that alignment breaks, we feel it not just mentally, but physically. Restlessness, anxiety, self-criticism, and a constant underlying tension that doesn't seem to have a clear source. You tell yourself you're ambitious, but you avoid taking action. You tell yourself you're committed, but you don't follow through. You tell yourself you're focused, but you continually choose distraction. Each contradiction is a small fracture in your identity. Over time, these fractures accumulate until the identity you claim and the identity you live by feel like completely different people. The more this happens, the more your belief in yourself deteriorates because deep down you know the truth. You're not acting like the person you say you want to be. This conflict also makes change harder because your brain is constantly pulled in two directions. One part of you wants to evolve, grow, and meet the standards you've set for yourself. The other part wants to remain where it feels familiar and safe. This internal tug of war drains your motivation before you even start. You end up stuck in the middle, not fully committed to your future self, but no longer comfortable with your current self either. And that state, being caught between identities, is where most people live for years. They convince themselves that wanting change is enough, but wanting and becoming are two very different things. The identity conflict keeps them trapped in a loop where they dream of progress, but behave in ways that guarantee nothing changes. Number 4, the fear behind laziness. Most people label themselves as lazy without ever questioning what's truly happening beneath that behavior. Laziness is almost never the real problem. It's a mask, an easy label that hides a deeper, more uncomfortable truth. Fear. Fear is the driving force behind almost every moment of hesitation, every abandoned plan, and every excuse disguised as procrastination. People aren't avoiding work because they don't care. They're avoiding the emotional risk that comes with trying. Fear of failure convinces them that effort is dangerous because if they try and fail, it confirms their deepest insecurities. So they choose not to try at all, believing that avoiding action somehow protects their self-worth. Fear of judgment makes them worry about how others will perceive their attempts, so they stay silent, hidden, and inactive. And fear of responsibility makes them cling to their current life, even if it's unfulfilling, because stepping into a bigger future requires stepping into bigger expectations. Laziness becomes the surface-level behavior, but fear is the root. This hidden fear often shows up in subtle ways. You feel a strange heaviness when thinking about starting something new. You feel mentally tired before doing any actual work. You convince yourself that you're not ready, or that you need more time, or that the conditions have to be perfect. These thoughts feel logical, but they're actually protective. Your mind is creating obstacles that keep you from confronting what scares you. The idea of growth becomes intimidating because it challenges everything you've become comfortable with. You worry about whether you're capable enough, disciplined enough, smart enough, or strong enough to reach the version of yourself you imagine. That worry builds into fear, and fear transforms into avoidance. Over time, avoidance becomes habit, and habit becomes the thing people lazily call just who I am, even though it's not who they truly want to be. The fear behind laziness also creates a powerful form of self-sabotage. When people finally gather the courage to try something, that same fear whispers doubt at every step. It tells them they're not good enough. It tells them they're going to fail. It tells them that other people are watching and waiting for them to mess up. This mental pressure becomes so overwhelming that giving up feels like the only relief. But instead of recognizing the fear, people blame themselves for being lazy. They internalize the failure, adding it to a growing list of moments that reinforce the belief that they're incapable. And once that belief takes hold, it becomes even harder to break the cycle of fear-driven inaction. Number 5, the power of micro commitments. People often believe that change requires massive effort, dramatic decisions, and intense bursts of motivation. But the real transformation happens through micro commitments, the small, consistent actions that seem insignificant in the moment yet compound into powerful change over time. Micro commitments work because they remove the psychological weight that keeps people from starting. When you tell yourself you have to completely overhaul your life, your mind becomes overwhelmed and your motivation collapses under the pressure. But when you commit to something so small that it feels almost impossible to fail, your brain doesn't resist. A 2-minute task, a 5-minute habit, a tiny promise to yourself, that's enough to create momentum. These micro commitments become the foundation for bigger habits because they rebuild the part of your identity that believes you can follow through. Every small act is proof to yourself that you are capable of doing what you said you'd do. Most people underestimate the power of this approach because they want instant results. They want transformation without patience, confidence without repetition, and success without consistency. But micro commitments work quietly and steadily, reshaping you from the inside out. They create a rhythm of action that becomes difficult to break because the tasks are too small to trigger resistance. You're not trying to climb the entire mountain, you're just taking the next tiny step, and each step reinforces your belief that you can keep moving forward. Over time, these small actions accumulate and start to feel natural, almost automatic. What once felt impossible suddenly becomes effortless, not because you became superhuman, but because you allowed yourself to start small and build steadily. Micro commitments also rebuild trust with yourself, which is something most people don't realize they've lost. When you repeatedly say, "I'll do it," and don't follow through, you damage your internal credibility. You stop believing your own promises. And when you don't trust yourself, it becomes nearly impossible to commit to any meaningful change. Micro commitments repair that relationship by giving you daily proof that you can keep even the smallest promises. It's not the size of the task that matters, it's the consistency of the follow through. Each tiny action strengthens the internal identity of someone who takes action instead of just talking about it. And as your identity shifts, your behavior naturally follows, making bigger commitments not only possible but inevitable. Number 6, the wake-up call. There comes a moment in everyone's life when the weight of their unmade choices finally begins to press against them. It doesn't happen suddenly. There's no dramatic explosion or loud alarm. It happens quietly, in the background, as days slip into months and months into years. At first, you don't notice it. You convince yourself there's still plenty of time, plenty of chances, plenty of tomorrows, but slowly, the truth begins to reveal itself. Every "I'll do it later" becomes a missed opportunity. Every abandoned goal becomes a piece of potential you never reclaimed. And every comfortable decision becomes a chain that keeps you stuck exactly where you've always been. The wake-up call is the moment you realize that life is still moving forward even when you're not. It's when you look around and see that other people, no smarter, no more gifted, no more capable, are growing, changing, and building lives you once imagined for yourself. And it hits you that the only difference is that they acted while you waited. What makes this wake-up call so powerful is that it doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care how busy you were, how overwhelmed you felt, or how perfect you wanted the timing to be. Life doesn't pause until you're ready. It keeps going, offering you chances that won't come back in the same form. And when you start to realize how much time you've wasted avoiding discomfort, protecting your fears, or procrastinating on the things that mattered, a subtle sadness begins to grow. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that comes from recognizing you were capable of more, but kept choosing less. This recognition can be uncomfortable, even painful, because it forces you to confront the version of yourself you've been avoiding. But it's also the first real step toward transformation, because you can't change what you refuse to acknowledge. The wake-up call isn't meant to shame you, it's meant to shake you. It's meant to make you aware of the fact that the life you want isn't waiting in some distant future. It's shaped by what you're doing today, right now, in moments that feel small and insignificant. When this realization finally settles in, you begin to see how fragile ambition is when it isn't supported by action. You begin to understand that potential is meaningless if never used, and you begin to grasp that your future is not a guarantee but a responsibility you either claim or abandon. If anything in this message hit you, don't walk away pretending you didn't feel it. Don't go back to the same habits, the same excuses, the same patterns you already know are holding you back. You don't need more motivation, you don't need a perfect plan, and you don't need to wait for some magical moment to begin. You just need to decide today that you're done living beneath your potential, because your life won't change in one dramatic leap. It will change the moment you stop talking about who you want to be and finally start acting like that person. The world isn't waiting for your words, it's waiting for your actions. So if you're going to take something from this, take this. Your future is being built right now, with or without your permission, and it's time you chose to be the one building it.